Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special edition of The Seventh Rule. I'm here with your stars, Aron Eisenberg and Cirroc Lofton. You know them as Nog and Jake Sisko on Deep Space Nine. My name is Ryan T. Husk. Today, we're going to talk about, we've got some new content, a new series that we're launching this week. And we've also got The Passenger, Episode 8 of Deep Space Nine, directed by Paul Lynch, to discuss. We were just talking scintillating reviews about it. We can't wait for you to hear all about it on The Seventh Rule. Why are you laughing already, Aron?
Scintillating reviews. Whetting their appetite.
So, yeah, we'll talk a little bit about this new content we're doing. For the next 4 weeks or so, we are doing something called the Star Trek Convention series, where we highlight and...
Hey guys, is it just me or is it breaking up? Is that just my connect?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I think we're good.
Okay.
But yeah, we're talking about Star Trek Convention attendees and vendors and cosplayers, things like that. We're bringing guests on. So if you want to be featured as one of our guests of the Star Trek Convention, feel free to let us know on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube,
Facebook,
Patreon.
Send us a pigeon. Anything.
Mail Cirroc Lofton.
You would have to send us pigeon to Cirroc.
Yeah, my connection sucks.
Yeah. We're having technical issues again with Cirroc.
That's a flashback.
Like the search for Wi-Fi. Right, we're going to change our title. The Seventh Rule, the search for Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Yeah, the search for Wi-Fi.
It's like he's looking around the house like he can actually see the Wi-Fi signal in the air, I think. I think he is like a magnet for Wi-Fi.
So this...
I can find it.
This new series that we're doing is actually fairly similar to something that Cirroc had been doing and wanted to do in the past, which was... He wanted to kind of like highlight people at the conventions. You wanted to tell us a little bit about that, Cirroc?
Yeah, so I got the idea a couple years back, but you know, the idea was to do a show that covers conventions.
It's just right. I mean, we've been talking for like 30 minutes before we started. Everything was
hours.
Yeah. Everything was fine. And now, as soon as you hit record, frozen.
Yeah, we're talking for like 2 hours. So we'll just tell you, Cirroc had been going around conventions and kind of interviewing the con goers and, you know, seeing what makes them tick and what they like about Star Trek, what they like about the convention, stuff like that. So this is kind of the Seventh Rules version of that, where we're bringing on individual guests and you're doing like a 15 or 20 minute spot. And we're going to be putting that up for the next 4 weeks. We see as Cirroc. We'll be putting that up for the next 4 weeks, practically daily.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and who have we? And we've talked to several people, and they've got some great things going on, especially for Star Trek Las Vegas. We had Darnell Davis. Yep, right. And we also have 2 new interns. We'd like to mention them. Give them a shout out.
Yeah, our Trek techs, our new Trek techs, Heather Jordan and Kat R. King. They are our intern Trek techs, and they'll be helping us out this month with this new series since we're doing double duty here.
Double duty.
And they've been very helpful so far and very cheery. One lives in LA, one lives in New York.
That's right. One lives in LA and one lives in New York. We just lost Cirroc again.
It's okay.
The search for Wi-Fi. Yes, and it's great to have them on, and we hope that you guys check out these little snippets of video we've been shooting. We got some more guests coming next week as well, and we're shooting to bring Armin in for the next show after this one for Move Along Home to hope and speak about that episode. And Armin, if we want to move in, do we want to move into The Passenger? I'm ready to talk about The Passenger.
You know, let's do it.
Let's do it.
But first,
first.
If you or anybody you know want to be a guest on the show and talk about Star Trek Convention, especially Star Trek Las Vegas, because this is kind of like the 1 month lead up to Star Trek Las Vegas, the biggest convention in the world that we know and love, please let us know. Send them our way and give us a little message as to why they want to be on the show. And we'll see what happens. Please continue, Aaron.
Oh, well, what am I continuing with?
Whatever.
I don't know. Today we had Eric Hall and Brooke and Mindy join us on on an earlier episode that we recorded prior to this one. So check them out. It's a lot of fun, and we hope to hear from you guys. And we're on Instagram now, we're on Twitter, and we're on Facebook. And let's get into The Passenger. I actually really liked this episode. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was kind of like a whodunit, a mystery. Who's, the bad guy, and, who's possessed. And, you're wondering, going through the episode. I love that there was energy leakage. I think anytime a show uses the word leakage, it's going to be a great show.
It's going to be a good show.
Yeah, very good show. So anyway,
Paul Lynch.
Paul Lynch was the director.
Do you remember him?
And it's interesting. I don't actually remember him. Do you, Cirroc?
Yes, I do remember Paul a little bit. Not as much as, but he's done a few episodes for us, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's done about 4 or 5 episodes. I've seen him before. I remember his face, but I just don't remember like connecting with him personally.
Sure.
So I don't have that like memory that I can just recall. Like, oh yeah, as much as I do other directors like David Livingston and Les Landau.
Oh, let me tell you the 5 episodes that Paul Lynch has directed. It looks like they're all in the first season, actually. They are A Man Alone.
I was in that one.
Babel, Q-less. These are all the ones that we had just covered.
We just covered all of these, yeah.
Yep, and Battle Lines. And then a few on the Next Generation, like The First Duty, which is a very preferred episode that we all love.
I'm so juvenile.
And The Naked Now, among others, which is not a preferred episode. Anyway, sorry.
And then the sequel to that, The Naked Later.
I was waiting for something. There it is.
We need like somebody in the back with a drum.
Yeah. So yeah, Paul Lynch basically did like a lot of the early episodes that we, like the first few episodes after David Carson, who did the pilot episode. I don't know if you remember working with David Carson, Aaron.
I do actually. I actually do remember him.
Yeah. So David did. He did the pilot episode, and he's a British guy, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? Carson. He reminded me of like one of the Beatles in like his voice and the way he approached his work.
Which one?
Like a Paul McCartney or John Lennon type. Yeah. So
we talked about looking at the directing of these shows, and I find I'm not, and maybe I'm too used to how modern shows are being filmed, because there's so much static camera movement, or I'm sorry, that was an oxymoron. There's so little movement of the camera and everything's static. It's all stuck. And then it's kind of a single frame or a 2-shot, and then a single and then a 2-shot. And it's interesting watching that. And one of the things I was just looking up when looking up Paul Lynch, and one of the things Will Wheaton said about Paul Lynch, and he said, Paul Lynch, who directed the episode The Naked Now, directed several episodes of TNG. He was an Englishman who was always extraordinarily wound up, red-faced, sweating profusely, and infamous for saying energy, 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 and action. And I was thinking about that because I don't remember that. And I was thinking an interesting dichotomy between an actor that's trying to get more and more, yet the cameras are all still and nothing's really moving. There's no energy within the camera and the cinematography. And right. I have to be honest, I'm not a fan of that. And maybe that's a progress of cinematography in TV. We see Discovery and everything's moving, and there's a lot of creativity with what they're doing with the camera and lighting and what have you. And while there's too much lens flare, everything's pretty safe and flat and very typical of the 90s in in the camera work, or in what and how it's directed and set up. And I wonder how that changed. And I'm sure budget had something to do with that as well. More money, although there was a lot of money in our shows. But it's interesting how.
Well, I could speak to a little bit, or at least one factor, not all of them, but one factor that comes to mind is those cameras that we use, the motion picture cameras that we use on our show, were heavy cameras.
Yes.
They required a dolly, a grip operator to move the dolly, and they also required, usually two people operating the camera itself.
Focus, yeah.
Yeah, outside of the guy who's looking through the lens. So usually about 3 people in and around the camera at any given moment. And I remember them drawing lines on the flooring that they would put down for marks for the camera. This would be the A mark of the camera, the B mark. And usually the guy who was, camera assistant dolly operator would move the camera onto each mark, one mark at a time. And what I see now with, as far as the advancement of cameras, with the RED camera and smaller cameras and higher quality digital film, digital imagery that is easier to process and lighter as far as, carrying film and all of the other things that come with doing film. You could see why now the looseness of the camera you're able to go in with a handheld and get a lot more kind of herky-jerky stuff, more inside of the mix stuff. I don't remember them using early on in the seasons, for example, the handheld camera that would come with a back brace, that we use.
Oh, a Steadicam.
A Steadicam.
Yeah.
They didn't use a Steadicam in the beginning of our show as much as
I can't say I interrupted you and I didn't mean to. I don't remember either, but I do know we did have Steadicam operators
at some point, around the 4th or 5th season, I think, 3rd, 4th, or 5th season.
But I also will argue, and not argue. This is a really fun discussion, and it's something I'm enjoying watching, and then watching the development of how the cinematography changes in our show, and trying to pay attention to that from episode to episode. But I remember Mike, there was one director and his son was also on the camera crew, and it was Mike, and I can't remember his last name. And I'll never forget this. He's all, see guys, we don't have to have the camera moving all the time. He made this comment where his perception artistically was we don't need the camera moving all the time. And he was older at that time, not older, probably my age or a little bit younger than I am now at that time, right? But his idea of directing the episode was to not have the camera move a lot. And then you see shows today like I know there's one show I know How to Get Away with Murder, and I remember watching it and the camera's like flying in, doing around loops around. I'm like, oh my god, every scene the camera's flying around. Then I watch a show from France called The Return. There was an American version. It didn't succeed, but the French version was amazing. It was haunting. It was spooky, and the camera rarely moved. It was really still, and it let the scene play out, and the actors play within the scenes, and it really drew you in to what they were going. So, and what I'm saying that is, I think even on our show, it comes down to creative thought, as well as sticking within the parameters that Star Trek and DS9 set for the directors, as well as the budget. To do a crane shot coming down or a big dolly shot takes a long setup, right? Than just putting the camera on sticks, shooting a 2-shot and then going in for 2 singles and 1 wide. Now we're out, we go to the next scene. We have 8 days to shoot a scene and a budget is only so much. And I always remember hearing that they said, look, you can have one amazing scene. Yeah, one Master. And then the rest are all got to be nice and simple and specific. So it's interesting trying to pay attention to the different directors to see their creative influence. And on this episode, I find myself watching that too much and kind of being like a little bit bored, a little bit too set up and too basic. It was
this episode really highlights to me why we met a lot of early criticism in the first season of our show.
Oh, really? Why?
Ooh, this is where it gets good.
Now we're
Here we
getting
go.
juicy, scintillating.
Well, I mean,
I'm gonna start recording now.
Yes. Well, for the reason that you just named, which is the pace. And I feel like our show's pace is slow.
Yeah.
Especially scenes that don't have Quark in them. I actually find myself really liking Quark's pace and his time on camera. Armin really sells it for me, and I don't feel like I'm watching the clock when he's doing his scenes. I really enjoy the scene in this one where the back and forth between Quark and Odo, for example.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And Quark reveals that he has his fantasy for Dax. This
so funny.
The wish list, and I think that his admiration for Dax, and it's funny to me, like they're all after one girl. It's like they need to import some more girls on the station because it's like what, every guy's after the same girl. But it's like to me, like their interchange, it feels lively. I feel the quickness of the pace, and I don't feel like I'm waiting for more action or quicker tempo.
Right.
So I do enjoy what Armin brings to the table, and when he's doing scenes with Renee and Sisko's character. But some of the slower scenes for me come when I watch, Sadig, who's heavily featured in this episode, and Terry Farrell, Dax's character, actually seems a little bit slow at this point. And so when the camera or when the scenes focus on that, I am looking for more tempo or something more. And so it's a little bit difficult to get into when you don't have the kind of tempo or pace that like Armin naturally brings to the table.
Well, I find myself gravitating to certain characters and really enjoying when they come on screen. And I'm really loving Renee and Odo as well as Quark and Sisko. Those three, and it's not a slight on anybody else, but I find the three of them the most dynamic, the most interesting, the most colored, and they come on, and I love watching Avery navigate and work through everything he's going through, and everything is in here. You see him thinking, and I love that. And I loved his exchange with Odo and how that was different and a little bit warmer, a little bit nicer, a little bit more diplomatic than it was with the Starfleet officer. Right. He was like, no, go home or do what I say. Odo's like, well, Odo, and he more complimented Odo to keep him. And then Odo's response was great. And remember, we are only at what was this number 9,
8. Episode
8. And you're starting to see those relationships build more. And you instantly know Odo and Quark, it's those two for 7.
Yeah.
And
sorry, I was just going to say, you said something about the way Sisko acts, and I noticed it too. It reminds me also of the way Jonathan Frakes acts. The way I see it is they act like a director, like a director thinks. In other words, they're deliberately trying to show you what they're thinking, because they're thinking like a director. They're thinking like, I need the audience to know that I'm pondering about this can of soda, but now I'm thinking of something else. Like you could see that they're deliberately kind of walking you through the steps of, making sure that you understand, now I'm thinking of this, and now I'm thinking of that, and I don't like what he's saying, and so and so I think that's strictly like people that think like a director that act that way. And I know Avery did end up directing episodes later on.
And so did Renee.
Yeah, and to piggyback on what you're saying, what I enjoy as well, which is just to add to what you're saying, is there's layers of context in between the interactions between Odo and Quark, or Sisko and Odo, and there's these there's this friction, there's a little bit of combativeness, there's a representation of a past history where and so you have so much layer when you get these interaction between these characters, as opposed to, for example, when I watch Siddig trying to hit on Dax, and it seems very surface level. It's like she's oblivious to the fact that he's all over her, and he's relentlessly going to keep trying. But there's no subtle layers of context there, where there's like picking up on certain things and letting go of certain things. It's really kind of what you see, what you get. Whereas when I see Quark and I see Sisko and I see Odo, I see them really layering their performances with, just that certain level of je ne sais quoi that just, takes the audience and makes them question it, and makes them really say, oh, I wonder if this is going to, be a rift between them, or, I wonder if this is going to end their friendship, or I wonder if this is going to be the thing that sets off a big argument between them.
Right.
And there's always that, you don't know, that element of kind of, uncertainty.
And we have to go to a break here soon, and Ryan will take us out. And I want to end with this, because I thought this was really funny. Watching Quark, fawn over Dax, all the time. And I'm thinking this is going to be an ongoing thing. And then I thought to myself, and she danced with me. He must have been so jealous.
Oh,
Nog, Dax dances with Nog, that little son of a Ferengi, Who's the cool
Ferengi too?
Yeah, that's. I think we all had a shot. I know I was talking to Dax the whole time, but that was off camera.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And I got shot down just as well as Siddig did.
But just remember, she went to the director to dance with me in the scene in You're Cordially Invited. She thought I was so adorable, cute, nice,
there's charity. She has to do charity work every once in a while. That was part of her charity.
It is interesting that they did cut to you and Quark, watching, going, just shaking your head. Both of you, my best friend and my uncle. So jealous.
It wasn't jealousy so much as it was, why this guy?
Wow. A true friend would have been, you go, Nog. That's my man. That's my buddy. High five. But,
no,
it's all a facade.
Not a true friend. Not a true friend.
You mentioned friction, which kind of it reminded me of something that is so far an absolutely new element, or at least a new take on that element on this show, and on the 8th episode so far, or 9th if you count the pilot as 2, and that was Lieutenant Primin, played by, let me look this up real quick, played by James Lashley. And he kind of introduced, suddenly, I don't remember this character. They introduced this new character that is now kind of butting heads with Odo. He's like a security officer from the Federation. And it's kind of an element that I wanted to see in there, was, like more of the friction between Starfleet and the Bajorans, and kind of like how Sisko is forced to navigate that, but then also how Odo plays that out. Is he just going to be like my way or the highway, which is kind of what we saw, or is he going to play ball and kind of think, okay, well, big picture, it's not so bad, pick your battles kind of thing. So I wanted to bring that up. We're going to go to a commercial break right now, and I kind of want to know what you guys think of that, and if they're actually really showing that friction well enough yet, or if you think that's something that leaves a little bit desired, to be desired. All
right
on the other side of this, that is. So we'll be right back on the 7th Rule. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 7th Rule, talking about episode 8 of Deep Space Nine, called The Passenger, directed by Paul Lynch. And just on the break, Aaron said something that made us laugh, and we're talking about this new character called Lieutenant Primin. And what did you just say on the break?
I'm not sure. I say so many things.
No, he said he actually said you get a good job, which is this is from the actor standpoint.
Yeah.
You get a good job, you get a good role, you do a good job at it, and then you never work again on the show. And
You're like, I felt sorry for him.
Yeah, I felt okay. I felt bad for the guy because you exactly what Cirroc said. You get a character, you get a starring role on a new hit TV Star Trek show, and you're playing a security officer of the Federation coming to Deep Space Nine, and they never explored it any further. And then I don't think he continues on, and Ryan didn't even remember him. I'm
checking right now. He does actually work in 2 episodes, because I was wondering how could they didn't announce that he was coming. He just pops out of nowhere.
They should have. Like you talked earlier in the previous, just a few minutes ago, about the conflict, right, between the Federation and Bajorans, and exploring that more. So there should have been a scene where an admiral, from Starbase, 3261 says, Commander Sisko, we're sending a security officer. And he's like, I'm fine. I don't need one. Well, we're sending one. We want more of a presence on there. And then you see that a little bit more of a conflict between what the Federation wants to happen, which is possibly we want Bajorans to come into the Federation. And I remember Ira saying that he never wanted that to happen. And I think it ends up happening in Star Trek Online. But I don't think he ever wanted that to happen. So you'll see that would have been a good conflict to start and bring in to the show by placing this guy for maybe a recurring role for 5 or 6 episodes, and Sisko navigating that he doesn't want to do that, and it's actually impeding his ability to bridge the gap and get the Bajorans on his side and working together for a common good, to now sowing more distrust. And then Kira then would then come in going, hey, why is this guy here? What are we doing? What are you doing? What is really your motive?
Who's the boss here? Who's really the boss?
And I don't think they took it that route. I'm assuming, because I haven't watched the show yet, that that's not where we're going to go. And I'll give a critique, and I'll finish with this because I know I talked too much. I'll give a critique that this was a missed opportunity for our show to build more for Sisko and Kira, and what the Federation wants, what Sisko wants, and Bajorans want.
Well, 2 quick points on that, and then I want to hear what Cirroc has to say on this. But number 1 is maybe not a total missed opportunity, because the next episode we see him in, the only other one, is an episode called Move Along Home, which is the next one we're doing next week. So it's kind of like a stay tuned for next week and see how they address it. I guess they signed him on for 2 episodes. Already kind of showing the serialized aspect of Deep Space Nine, how they kind of introduce a character, keep him into the next one, and then he's gone. But what I was going to say also is this thing that you mentioned might be a missed opportunity was absolutely very well capitalized later on in the series with Lieutenant Eddington, or Lieutenant Commander
Maquis.
Yes, because they introduced him, but he didn't become Maquis right away. He had a few episodes. There was some conflict. Sisko was in the middle of it. All that juicy stuff that we want, they did that later. Anyway, you were going to say, Cirroc?
Well, I was going to just highlight, because I think before we went to break, you mentioned Odo's character. And one of the things that I really like, I felt Renee really has a good grasp on what he wants to do with his character. And you see that right away. He's like he's set in his ways. He's very opinionated. He follows his gut, and he kind of relishes conflict. He enjoys like unnerving people or trying to get under their skin. It's almost like the Columbo kind of approach, where you like enjoy getting under somebody's skin and really kind of saying the things that irk them just to see their reaction.
Don't get used to Columbo references. This is going to be the only one. Okay,
this is the only one.
Oh,
but
you got Columbo and I got the Shield. Okay, is that what we're going with?
Yeah, Peter Falk, baby, Peter Falk. Fuck that. So yeah, I just enjoy the way he really has a complete grasp on what he wants to accomplish with his character and how he executes. I think he's so bullheaded, so strong and opinionated that, you know, he follows his gut, and he's usually on the right path in that regard. So I think that, you know, one of the things that I enjoy early on now in the show, like you said, there's certain characters that stand out to me as being as having grabbed my attention and really, you know, being liked by me. And I think that Odo, Quark, and Sisko have really earned that for me. Yeah.
Oh, I to take that further, to take that another step, I'm watching the show now, and I'm starting to think, what brings me back next week, right? If I'm watching the show, which we are for the first time, and I'm enjoying it, I'm thinking to myself, okay, why do I want to come back next week? There isn't a serialized idea yet, other than the conflict, you know, or not the conflict, but Sisko's job to, you know, keep the peace and help the Bajorans move forward. But there isn't any story arc that's really going to bring me back. Oh my gosh, we're going to end the episode with this cliffhanger. I got to tune in next week. So what I realize is that it's the characters that are going to bring me back. So what character do I look forward to? And that's what I want to ask you two. Which character at this moment? Now that can change, right? Because obviously we're going to be a deep character-driven show, and we all know that that's what's coming. And Ryan has already seen it, so he already knows. If you, Ryan, could separate yourself from what you already know, and you were only watching up to us, which Cirroc and I, which character is really going, I can't wait to see more of this one? And I am so surprised I'm going to say this. And that doesn't mean I don't love Sisko's character and Quark's character, because I absolutely agree with you about Quark. He brings an energy, lifts the show. And I want to see more of Bashir, Dax, Kara, but I'm going to say Odo. And I never, ever thought I would say that. And I think that's because of my own preconceived ideas about Odo. One, he always got threw me, you know, in jail, or he was always grabbing my arm and I was always in trouble. And that's obviously a joke. But two, I always saw Odo and Renee on the show as being angry, right? Because he has this curmudgeon look to him, which is his character also. But I always thought Renee was angry, and I always thought he was mad at me. Now that's my own insecurity because I never did anything. But I always thought, oh yeah, I don't think he likes me. I don't think he likes me. And I'll never forget that at one time in the makeup trailer, I was talking about Terry Brooks, that I really loved his books. And I might have said this on another show, but I'm going to say it again. And apparently Renee was in the makeup trailer at the same time. And I never really had a lot of interactions with him other than hello. And now he means the world to me, and I'm much closer to him. But back then I wasn't. I'm 23, 24, you know, and I'm like, oh man, I think he's mad, whatever. I'm insecure. Go fast forward a couple weeks or another time, Renee comes up to me and says, here, I brought this for you. I'm like, oh, whoa. And he brought me a audio cassette of one of the books that he did the audio of Terry Brooks's books. And I'll never forget that moment, because it was such a small gesture, but it absolutely warmed my heart. And go, high five, Renee. All right, we're good. I'm okay. Okay, good. I feel good. I feel better.
You and don't hate me.
Yeah, you don't hate me. You love me. You love me. But it showed me what I wasn't seeing, which was Renee. I kept seeing Odo, which developed my idea of him. Now watching the show, and I'll finish here. I'm sorry. I love his character and his work. And he's the one that I'm looking forward to each week. And I never, ever thought I would say that at this moment. And that will probably change as our show changes and we get into more characters. But I'm loving watching Renee play Odo. I just love it. And especially because his makeup is probably even harder than ours as a Ferengi, because you truly don't see his face. And even in my makeup, you still saw my cheeks. You see my mouth. His literally covers every part of his face. And he brings everything through that. It's he's one I'm looking forward to every week right now.
Yeah.
Cirroc, what about you?
Well, I have to say, I know this is probably the easy pick, but I never expected myself saying this. I enjoy Quark's character, and I kind of I'm interested to see what he's gonna do or what he's gonna say, you know. And it's like he's liable to say anything, which is kind of what I like about him. He doesn't pull any punches, and he lets it go, and I like that. The thing that I wanted to say about this passenger episode, and it has to be said, and I will be the one that says it. It was difficult to watch Bashir, the possessed version of Bashir, and it was difficult to watch for me. And I was just like literally looking at the screen like, I can't believe, that they got away with this, because it was almost unbelievable for me in a very cheesy kind of way. And
Can I throw a defense into Sid?
Please.
I'll throw a defense into him, okay?
This is nothing against Sid, and I know that he was asked to do this, and they wanted it done this way. And it's just, I just couldn't watch it without literally like just putting my hand over my head, like, oh God, this is bad.
Yeah, and again, it's hard to throw criticism. It's hard to throw criticism because, for actors, you never really know the circumstances of how they get to what we do. Sometimes you have an idea, you want to do something, and somebody else has another idea, and either A, you give in, B, you do your thing, or C, you find somewhere in the middle. So we truly don't know what happened here. And it was probably the weaker part of the show. But with that said, one of the notes of production was all of Sid's original on-set dialogue as Vantika. Am I saying that right? Or Vantika? Vantika, I think is how it was said. In the episode, all of it was dubbed in post-production. Sid made a choice that the producers didn't feel was right for them. So he had to go into post-production, ADR, looping, those are the things it's called, to redo his audio for all his lines in the show, which I think affected that performance. And that's why I think it's a tough thing, because personally I thought Sid was really funny in the first scene with Kira. And it's almost like this innocent arrogance and she was equally entertaining in her response. So I was kind of hoping to see more of them together as we move on to other shows. And you are right about Quark. I look forward to him as well. And I also look forward to Avery. I love watching him navigate all the people he's got to work with. I love all that. And again, we have another episode without the family dynamic, which is driving me nuts. I want to see an appearance from my best friend, and I want to see that relationship between him and Sisko grow. And I don't know why they've waited so long to do that. It's bugging me. It's another critique I have of our show.
Yeah.
I think that we've gotten now to the point, 8 episodes in, where every main character has had their spotlight, and I think that's what they did, where they're kind of like, this is kind of a Quark-centric episode. This is
this is a Sid one then, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
That was a Sid one. There was an O'Brien one, kind of, or at least halfway, centric.
Oh yeah, where was O'Brien in this episode?
But to answer your question, I can tell you from when I first started watching it, I have the same opinion because when I first started watching it so many years ago, I didn't watch starting at the pilot. I started watching around maybe the 3rd or 4th season or something like that.
Oh, really?
But there's still the same character that jumped out at me, and that is Garrick.
Yeah.
In that character makes me go, man, I want to learn more, because they've created a mystery around him. Quark is a mystery, and he's interesting, but less so. We understand what he's doing. We understand why. Whereas Garrick is an enigma wrapped in another enigma or whatever, And so we want to know more. We want to know more. We want to understand what makes him tick, what's going on. And the other one is, for me, from the beginning, the get-go, is Sisko, because in the first episode, in the pilot, we get the most backstory of his. And so the more backstory you get of characters, generally, the more you want to learn more about them, because now they're multi-dimensional, and you've learned more about them, and you say, well, what about this and what about that? And in that first episode, we learned so much about him and his journey and his story and all this stuff that happened before he even arrives at Deep Space Nine. There's so much Sisko history and this huge story that happens before he arrives there, that he's the guy that we're still following, you know, and we want to continue to learn more. And part of that is his story with his son, you know. So it's like his history, his family life, and his new job. That's kind of like the trifecta that, you know, he's doing. And I think we're going to get a lot more of that in the first season. I don't remember, but I'm assuming we do. And I would say it's those two.
When we were sitting talking, I was thinking about the characters, and I was thinking, why haven't we seen Garrick again? I don't like when shows introduce somebody and then you don't see them for a while. I don't know, either I'm spoiled in some way or it's something that bothers me, even if it's one scene. And I know as a production, you can't just constantly bring everybody back every week for every show. I get that. But I don't like we made those critiques on Discovery as well. And I'm starting to see those little cracks here. I don't know why O'Brien was a no-show in this episode as well. And I know things happen. Someone's out of town. They get another job for a short period of time, or something happens with family. There's so many reasons why an actor may not be available for a particular episode, even a regular. And I'm assuming Cirroc could probably talk about that a little bit better than I can. But I sat there going, oh, wait, O'Brien didn't show up. And I hate that I didn't realize it while we were watching the show, which is a good testament to the show, that I was invested enough in it that I didn't think, oh, what's wrong with this episode, you know? But you
know, the other thing that they kind of really threw heavy at us in the beginning, and at least in the pilot, and they haven't really gone back to, is the fact that Sisko is this prophet and gets these visions from, you know, these aliens or these whatever, you know, from the prophets. And we don't really get back into that. And I'm kind of missing to see, oh, do the prophets talk to him every week, or do they guide him, or, you know, how often does he get visions? And so I feel like they gave us a lot of that, and then they just haven't given us any more since.
Yeah, not at all. And again, how do you fit all these things you put out there within a 45-minute episode, right? Outside of commercials, right? 43 or something like that?
42, I think.
It's really difficult to put in all these ideas and elements, I think, you know? You can't just have them come by and, I mean, does he start the episode waking up from a dream? Maybe so. Maybe it's that simple that, and Ryan, who is a writer, maybe you can speak of that. You know, if you want to keep those elements, do you have a plan to keep those elements as a writer, or do you really write out of by the seat of your pants and just go with the flow of week to week and what's happening and what you see in dailies and what you see by meeting the actors? Why couldn't we start the episode with Sisko is literally having a dream that's so obscure we don't even really know what it means yet, and maybe they plant that seed that we find out what it means 3 seasons later, or maybe 6 episodes later. And then he says, good morning to his son. And he says, Jake, what are you doing today? I don't know. I have nothing to do. Don't you have school? And you're like, well, we don't really have a school. And that just plants a seed. We got to fix that for when Keiko wants to make a school. You know what I mean? Simple connection, but then Sisko has to go. So Jake's going to sit there and, you know, maybe he's going to start reading a book, which then leads, which is just a little seed for being a journalist. You know, you read books all day. I just finished this book, Dad. Meaning, I don't think they have those ideas yet in place, right? So is it better as a writer to have some of those little ideas that let's explore this? So if you plant the seed that Sisko wakes up from a nightmare, prophet dream, sees his son in the morning, he's like, Dad, I just finished another book. Oh, we find out that Jake's a prolific reader, is a voracious reader would be a good one. And it's nothing that we think about. He's a kid, he's reading books, right? But then how much would that be even more great foundation for later when you become a writer, right?
Right.
Things like that. You know, I don't know. We only can go back and do that because we know what happens. And then Sisko goes about the episode. Easy to bring in the profits, right?
Well, that's the
Right.
difference. That's the difference between episodic and serialized storytelling in television. And back then, they didn't want to plant those seeds so much because they want you to be able to, if you missed last week's episode, they would still want you to be able to watch this week's episode. Because remember, there was no Netflix back there. You couldn't go back and watch it. If you missed episode 7, that's it. It's gone for a while.
Sure.
And they don't want you saying, well, I can't watch episode 8 because I missed episode 7 and it all ties in. You know, and they also want to be able to get new viewers. Let's say you're watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine for the first time on season 2, episode 8. You don't want to be like, I don't know what the is going on here. You want to say like, okay, I get it. It's a self-contained episode. Nowadays, we can do serialized writing, and personally, I think it's better. Deep Space Nine was one of the first to actually move into that realm boldly, mind you, because we didn't have Netflix and Hulu back then. So they were really taking a chance doing it. But to what you're saying is it hugely and vastly expands the quality of the writing that you can do, because it doesn't always have to be this one little self-contained story. You can start planting seeds here and introducing characters there and bringing them back a few episodes later and then 2 years later, and it all ties in. And suddenly you're writing this very rich story, this whole long tapestry, you know, which is a season 7 episode of Next Generation. But anyway, like, that's, to me, that's more sophisticated writing. But episodic is a lot tougher in that regard, in that everything has to just, that's it. You've got this long to do it, and everything has to fit into this, and that's it, you know?
But
do it.
having Sisko wake up in the morning and Jake see him at the breakfast table with his 3rd book he's read in 3 days doesn't have to lead to a serialized idea of, oh, I can't wait to see what book Jake reads on the next episode. It can be something that people accept as part of a normal behavior of a 14-year-old kid and wouldn't think anything of it. Yet, 3 years later, when he's a writer, they'll go, oh yeah, remember when Jake was such a voracious reader? So it's a subtle seed that's being dropped. Same with Sisko. If Sisko has some obscure dream, if you didn't see that episode and then 3 episodes later there's something with the prophets, it doesn't mean that you needed that to then enjoy that episode. It just would have made that a little bit stronger because it would have brought you along on that journey, but it didn't, one wasn't dependent upon the other. See what I'm saying?
Right. And they are doing that.
But I want it now. Yeah. I want it on episode 8. Just kidding.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, well, my thoughts are that it's still early. We're season 1, episode 8. So I think a lot of these things, they do go back and talk about Garrett. They do go back and build out Odo's storyline. They do build out Quark's storyline. They do build out our relationship.
Of course.
So they're going to address these things. I just feel like, you know, we're just like anything. We're always looking forward to the next thing. You know, who's the Red Angel? You know, we always want to know the future and the next thing and the next thing. And that's just the insatiable appetite of the viewer. But I do give credit that DS9 will address a lot of the things that we're talking about. They will go back and cover the Emissary and the Visions, and
of course they will,
and build out a lot of these stories. So we're impatient. We also have the luxury of hindsight as opposed to just being in the moment. But you know, that doesn't take away from whether I like something or not. Sure. And it comes down to that basically for me. Do I like it or do I not? And when it comes to, you know, the characters that we talked about that we like, I like them. And as far as some of the ones that they're still developing, in my opinion, I'm still having trouble gravitating towards liking them because they're not fully kind of developed yet. So you know what I mean? I'm not necessarily in love with the characters, some of the characters now, because they still haven't really
Fleshed them out.
Yeah, fleshed them out and have a strong identity where, oh, that guy is who that guy is.
Yeah.
And I feel like the stronger characters that have really identified their purpose and their behavior and who they are and what they're going to be about early are the ones that I like the most.
Well, you know, the character that's been the most developed is the station itself. And that absolutely is a draw. To some people, it was a put-off. It was a character they did not like or an element they didn't like. But I think that's a draw because we all, to me, it's fascinating. It's got its own life. Like, there are all these aliens running around. There's all these restaurants and nooks and crannies, and it's got a culture of its own. It's really kind of a cool thing.
Like a Thomas's English muffin.
Yes. So there was also one more thing that I noticed this episode, speaking of Odo earlier. I noticed this when I was watching this episode with the way Odo's character reacted to the new character, Lieutenant Primin. He reminded me very much on a production of an assistant director. He is the assistant director of Deep Space Nine. Like, an assistant director is also very much in charge of like safety and the security of everybody. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen an assistant director say the same kind of thing to the effect of, hey, if I can't have control of this set to do my job, then you're going to have to find another assistant director. And that's what Odo was saying. He was saying, look, in order for me to do my job, I need to have, you know, full reign over all this. I can't be looking over my shoulder. I can't be squabbling over this guy. And if you're going to be looking over my shoulder and you know, undermining me in any way, then I can't do this. Then I no longer am able to do this kind of job. And I was just like, that's cool. Odo's an assistant director. Aaron, have you ever thought that, or did you consider him to be more of a grip?
I don't think I thought he was craft service, actually. I was waiting for him to bring me the bagels. Maybe that's why he always gave me the dirty look.
That's why he didn't like
asking him, hey, you got the bagels today? And he just looked at me and walked away.
We need more cream cheese.
It's interesting to me to think about how do we improve writing, right? Like, if we could add the scene into this episode with Sisko waking up from a prophet dream that we don't really know. We meet.
You're really stuck on that dream.
No. But I'll tell you where I'm going, and it goes to what you said about, oh, we only got 30 seconds. Shoot. And then we get into Discovery, who really haven't done those things either, and we're 25 years apart. When do we get to that where those little seeds are dropped in a show where you just really go along that journey and you're like, wow, they dropped it all the way back there. You know, that's what I was thinking about. Same with cinematography. We grew in cinematography. What about writing?
So, friends, we got to run. For those of you listening in on iTunes, thank you very much for joining us. For those of you watching on video and YouTube or wherever else, stay tuned. We've got a little feature called The Free For All. We're going to have some of our guests from this week joining us, as well as our interns. We're going to have a little fun. We're going to go nuts. It's going to be reckless.
Crazy.
So, thank you all so very much for joining us. And as always, remember the 7th rule.
He's always shaking his head.
And welcome back to the 7th rule. This is the free for all. Everybody's here. Everybody's going nuts, especially Darnell. Remember, Lofton, Aron Eisenberg. We are joined by Heather Jordan and Kat R. King. We also have Christine Rideout and the troublemaker, Darnell Davis. So today's big question of the day, guys. Are you ready for this? Starting with Kat.
Oh.
And everybody's going to answer it. What's your favorite cookie?
Wow.
Oh.
Wow.
Okay,
That's
right
really
now,
good.
I don't have an all-time favorite, but right now, because I live in Southern California, it's those fudge stripe cookies. You know what I'm talking about? The shortbread ones with the fudge stripes. I'm just all about those right
Why?
now.
Why? Because you're in California.
Because I didn't grow up with anything like that, you know. So I grew up with, again, I grew up in the UK, and we have a totally different types of, you know, bickies and all that.
Only have shortbread.
Right. Then I lived in Australia, and then you get the Tim Tams and like the wafer style. But there's something about those little shortbread cookies with the
Just drives you
chocolate
crazy.
drizzle. Oh, it just drives me
So
nuts.
this is really what's going on while you're in your car because you had to get a couple packs of those and hide and eat them all.
Target run.
I'm actually at the very back of the car park at the
That's what I
Target
thought.
car park
Yeah.
with, yes.
Next time we do a free for all, I want to see the back seat just covered with those packages all over the place.
With stripes.
I might surprise you.
I want to see that. That's got to happen, Kat. That's got to happen.
She's actually got the Keebler Elf guy in her trunk. She's kidnapped.
No, I'll be the Keebler Elf. I'll be in the truck.
You
In the
guys
back,
are just
popping
calling
out.
me out. Calling me out. Just...
Hey, leave her alone, guys.
All right, Heather.
Oh, well, look at you being a hero. That's so sweet.
I don't
Same question. Favorite
See,
cookie,
I got
Heather?
your back, Kat.
know. I guess I would
Thank you,
have to
Sarah.
say,
Thank you.
like old-fashioned chocolate chip. Just,
Oh.
Yeah,
But which one? Chips Ahoy? You getting turned into a pirate?
like the soft cookies.
Oh,
I
the
don't
soft
like the
ones. Yeah,
hard ones.
yes,
I like
yeah.
the soft bake. I guess they're
Mm.
soft baked Chips Ahoy, something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, soft bake. You're a softie. I get it.
the chewy,
Yeah.
extra chewy.
I don't
Chewy.
like the hard crunch. It's like, too much work.
Why hasn't Star Wars capitalized on that? Chewy cookie. Sorry, it's very bad.
That's what they make. That's the sound they make when you.
Christine loves my ideas. She's like, "Ooh, I'm writing that one down too."
Christine, what
What?
do you think?
Homemade chocolate chip cookies. Like
Okay, a little spin.
Mm.
like the Toll House recipe from when, grandma used to make them.
I can't give Nestle any money though, Christine. I can't give Nestle any money.
That's true, but you could use a different brand of chocolate chip, but that recipe, like homemade,
That's true.
kind of soft.
That's true. Good call.
And if you can't make them at home, then Costco makes really good ones.
See, I was thinking if I was using the
get the
recipe,
Ghirardelli.
somehow they were getting money from me. I don't know why I thought that. Very strange.
I like the Ghirardelli one. If you find the Ghirardelli chocolate chips, you don't have to do the Nestle that way, and they're
Right.
really
That's
nice.
true. I don't know why I was afraid to use the Toll House recipe because it was Nestle. I go, well, I can't use that because it's Nestle. But they have no idea that I'm using that.
That's right.
I feel so
We have a
stupid right now.
store here called Wegmans, which is like kind of a big deal where we live, and they
Kind of a
have
big deal.
fresh baked cookies that they sell, and they're great. They're soft and fresh, and they're gone within minutes when we get them. So
Minutes.
Oh, yeah,
Minutes.
So Darnell,
They're selling like hotcakes.
And here's my unpopular opinion for the day.
Ooh,
My least
ooh.
favorite cookies, Girl Scout cookies.
I do like
all of them,
them.
just the whole thing, the whole gamut.
The whole
It's a racket.
idea of
And
Girl
the
Scout
people
cookies.
that make them and the little girls that sell them, just the whole thing, the whole
My
racket.
little girls used to be those little girls who sell them, and that's why we quit Girl
Me
Scouts.
too.
Yeah.
How dare you?
The
Christine?
pressure, man.
How
The
dare
pressure.
you?
Forget it. And it was like, I was a fitness coach at the time. I'm like, I'm not asking my friends to buy this crap.
So Darnell, are you an
Do an
oatmeal
episode
raisin
on Girl
guy?
Scout cookies.
Oh my God. I love Girl Scout
You-
cookies.
The best place to post up now is right for Girl Scout to sell those
But-
cookies.
Yeah,
Alongside
yeah.
the shop.
Anywhere
Outside
you
the
can buy
dispensary.
Some.
Dispenser.
By the dispensary.
That is a good one.
Well, we've officially dropped 3 sponsors: McDonald's, Nestle,
Nestle.
and
the
Girl
Girl
Scout
Scouts.
cookies will officially not be sponsoring this show. Thank you, Aaron.
Why did you say me? What did I do?
Well, I can't say somebody.
Wow, you just sold
It
it.
Doesn't
Can we
matter
check
because
Twitter war?
Aaron and I, no, it doesn't matter because Aaron and I are going to make a buttload of money for this podcast with our Hollywood Squares idea.
Star Trek squares, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. We need to make it happen.
Oh, the
We need a
excitement
better
has
name.
returned for that.
who's
We
the
could add that to our show, Christine.
Okay.
All
Now,
right.
as a witness, I want 5%.
We got to hear from Darnell.
You said it-
Darnell
you said there was
says
no recording.
Well, I'm a witness.
Ryan's all, can we please just get to the question?
I'm just trying to get Darnell's answer. That's all I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I
Oh,
want to know
okay,
about it.
Ryan.
Don't say
my
Girl Scout
answer,
cookies.
I love the pepperidge farms, or however you say it. How you say that word?
Milano.
Nanas are
I
good.
like the soft bake,
Pepperidge Farm.
Pepperidge Farms, whatever it is, and
Yep.
the soft bake. I love anything chocolate, so you combine all that. I'm in heaven. I'm
So
heading out.
classy.
So Darnell's answer is all cookies, always and forever.
Absolutely. Darnell's trying to stay away from the sugar, but you put some in front of them, they're gone. They're gone.
Aaron?
Yeah.
I mean, is there really a cookie that we don't like?
Sure.
You know, I could go, to the Oreos. I could go to the Oreos. Everyone likes Oreos. I could go to ginger snaps. Everyone, I love ginger, especially fresh gingerbread. I with grated ginger. Oh my God, that's so good. I'm gonna go to those devil food cookies that I haven't had in a very long time, but those sound so good right now.
You can't fit in your cosplay. They're all devil food cookies.
No, but they're like cake cookies. The devil's food. What? They're like chocolate covered cake cookies.
Soft, right? Soft.
Very soft.
Yeah.
I like the
Very
soft
soft.
cookies.
Fudge.
Everyone
in the
likes soft
microwave.
cookies.
I put them in the microwave. I love it.
All right, Cirroc, what do you think?
Well, I have a cookie place that I used to go to when I was in college. It's in Westwood. It's called Dee Dee Reese.
I thought you were going to say a different kind of cookie, Cirroc.
No.
Wow.
No, I wasn't going to bring that one up, but no, this is a great cookie spot, and they have a cinnamon sugar cookie that I like there. It's just just covered with cinnamon. And the other cookie that I like is a new cookie that just opened up called Zookie's Cookies, and they have this really soft, gooey chocolate chip cookie that's like melting hot in the middle, and I love that.
Sounds naughty.
I just like hearing you say cookie. Cookie.
Yeah.
Just say it again.
Cookies.
Say it again.
I'm all about my cookies.
I love that.
It's like
The way
Cookie
he says
Monster,
cookie.
like.
Yeah. We have Zookie's Cookies. Yes.
Cookie.
Yes.
We need a cookie sponsor so he can read all about the cookie company.
Just so you know, there's a place, if you like cookies, like ice cream sandwiches with cookies, there's a place you got to go all the way to Riverside for it. But I think they have some in LA. You know what I'm talking about. They're just ice cream sandwiches, but smashed between two big gold cookies. You can pick out whatever flavor you want. It's like $2.50. It's delicious.
Yeah.
I think we're going with Darnell's Pepperidge Farms, though. That's kind of
Is that where we're going?
It's gotta be the winner.
of goodies. I mean,
You're choosing who's the best.
Yes.
No, I mean, I
yes.
just think that's, if we're looking for sponsors, let's go with Pepperidge Farms. I mean, for me, I kind of fell in love with Snickerdoodles back in the day. That's a very sweet Mormon.
I just
girl.
love that name, Snickerdoodle.
Yeah, she used to bake me these fresh Snickerdoodle cookies, and it was like baked with God's love or something like
Oh, my
that. But
goodness.
they were just so good. So
They call
Thanks
that
for you.
that's called marijuana.
oh yeah,
Those were edibles.
they were so fun.
Who made these for you? Okay, I guess he doesn't want to answer.
The clinic.
Not reveal my sources.
No, it was a friend of mine named Renee Tullis. Very good friend. She's
A
still-
neighbor, an older woman making you cookies. Cookie.
she was-
In
An
the wee
older
hours
woman,
of
a
the morning.
cougar.
Lucky.
Yeah, she had an Irish accent.
It's like The Graduate. Thank you, Darnell. Thank you. At least I got one laugh.
That was for me.
Christina's
That
like,
was for me, Aaron.
That was
my
a pity. That was a pity laugh. That was a pity laugh.
That was my laugh, Aaron.
Definitely not a pity laugh.
That laugh was for me, Aaron.
No, it wasn't.
Aw.
No, it wasn't. Nice try.
All right, never mind.
When you say something funny, I'm sure he'll laugh.
Okay, thank you.
Well, everybody, thanks for joining us on the Free for All.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah, Cirroc keeps
Why?
texting me that he needs to go home.
I want to get some cookies now. So
I know I'm hungry.
I think I need to go
Gotta
bake
get to
some
Zookie.
chocolate chips.
Heather's like, I came here just for this? Really? I couldn't tell you what my favorite cookie was.
Hey guys,
Fries.
They're like my favorite movie. I was ready for that one.
Yeah, ask another one. Come on, Ryan.
I didn't even get to say my
wait
least
a minute.
favorite.
Wait, I have one.
Okay.
I
All right,
have
I'll ask another one.
Hold on, Ryan. I have. What is your favorite toilet paper to use? Aaron, we'll start with you.
Wow. Wow.
Oh,
What's
look at
toilet
the
paper? I
time.
didn't know we had to use toilet paper.
It's getting late, guys.
No, we are going to
It's
ask
getting
another
late.
question, but it'll be
Okay,
next
all
week.
right.
Thank you all for joining us.
Oh,
Cottonmouth.
wow, Ryan. Everyone's disappointed.
Charmin.
I'm
He's
used to it.
shutting
I
it
always
down.
disappoint people.
Heather wanted to say
I'm
what her
all
favorite
about the
movie
cool
was.
northern.
Oh, go ahead, Heather.
Heather, I'm dying to know what's your favorite
I
movie.
was just ready for that question because Ryan said yesterday that was going to be the question. He
Oh,
lied.
yeah.
Tell us.
What?
Dying to know.
Okay. It's Fifth Element.
Oh, really?
Movie.
Yes.
That's one of my favorite directors, The Professional and La Femme Nikita.
It's all about the story because at the end it's just like it's so pure, like the fifth element is love, and you gotta give props to that scene.
Spoilers.
What? I missed it.
I kind of missed it too. Oh, Ryan's saying we gotta go.
Yeah, sorry, but I love hearing about the Fifth Element. She said she's going to cosplay as Lilo at the Star Trek convention. So keep your eyes out for that.
Not.
Very cold in the convention, just so you know.
I'm going to be the flying car. Thank you, Darnell.
I laugh at everything. You guys are funny.
It's the funniest show this side of the Gamma Quadrant.
Oh, absolutely.
I think
All
you
right,
should be
guys,
Bruce
thank you so
Willis,
much for
Aaron.
joining us.
I could do that.
You could do Bruce Willis.
Minnie Willis.
And I'll do Danny Glover. We can go as Lethal Weapon 4.
Yes, let's do it. Let's do it.
You guys got to do it.
I'm getting too
I
old
need
for
a
this
long hair
shit.
wig so I can do
Yeah.
Mel Gibson.
I'm getting too old for this shit. Rich.
Does that mean I have to be Joe
He
Pesci?
said a bad
Yeah.
language.
Well, actually, I should probably be Joe Pesci, and you should be.
Yes, I was gonna say. I think Aaron.
Maybe you're right. Good point.
Utes.
The two youths.
Two Utes.
2 years.
Uh,
I got a hole in the desert with your name on it.
Do I
I'm
make
gonna
you
go watch
laugh,
Casino
Ryan?
now,
You
guys.
think I'm funny? Okay.
funny how? Funny how?
Funny, ha ha, funny.
Well, all right. We'll all say goodbye. Christine's like, gosh, get me out of this. Thank you all for joining. Heather and Kat, it's great to have you on board with us. Darnell, I'm
Likewise.
glad your Wi-Fi lasted through this show. And Cirroc, again, I feel like I'm being kidnapped right now, and you're about to close the trunk.
That's all right. You stay in there,
Keebler
kid.
Elf.
The Keebler Elf. No, I'm not in a car. I'm actually in a suitcase, and he's about to close the lid.
Big suitcase, actually.
All right.
All right.
All right. Thanks
Thank you,
very much,
guys.
guys.
Have a good one. Until next time.
It was
Everyone.
a